So we're going to start this first one. I have graph paper up here. You guys don't have graph paper. I'm sorry about that. You guys could at least sketch it in your notebooks. And we have this list of questions. I do want you to add number 11 on there at the bottom. Write down axis of symmetry as number 11. And these questions right here are many questions that you could ask on any quadratic equation. And they're not in any particular order. As a matter of fact, I would put the axis of symmetry right next to the vertex. So I would probably do this one as number 3 if I were putting them in order on how they're related to each other. So I just put a random list of questions that tests could ask you on any quadratic equation. So let's start with questions 1 and 2 together because they're pretty much related. Does it open up, down, how do you know, and what is the vertex? So what I want to do, and what I want you guys to do in your notebook is write down 1, does it open up or down? Down. Is down, okay. And how do we know it's opening down? Because the a value is -1. So you want to write that down, because the a value is -1. Okay, if the a value, and when I say a, I'm talking about a standard form quadratic trinomial, ax squared plus bx plus c, right? The a value is simply the number that's in front. If the a value is positive, it's going to open up. The parabola will open up. If the a value is negative, like it is right here, it's going to open down, okay? So that's the first thing you know, that it opens down. And we could also find the vertex. You guys remember how to find the vertex? Yes. The vertex is a coordinate. How do we find the vertex? X equals -b over 2a, right? And we know that the b value in this case is 2 and the a value is -1. So I'm going to plug it in with parentheses just so I don't get confused. And we said that the b value is 2 and the a value is -1 in this case. Okay? So right here what we're finding is the vertex, and we are finding the vertex x value. So on the top we have -2, and on the bottom we also have -2. So that is correct. The x value of your vertex is -1. I mean +1, I'm sorry. +1. So my x value is 1 for my vertex. Now, how do I find my y value once I already have my x value? You plug it in, right? So plug it in where? We're going to plug in the 1 right into this x spot and into this x spot, and I'm going to work it all out, and it'll give me my y value. So the first thing to do that would be smart is to rewrite this thing with parentheses instead of the x. Okay, so let me do that right there. Rewrite it with parentheses instead of x's. So there's my equation. Instead of x's, I have parentheses. And again, to find my y value of my vertex, I want to take the 1 and plug it in right into those parentheses. Put a 1 right there and a 1 right there. And using the parentheses actually helps us from making mistakes, because we could clearly see right here that it's 1 squared, right? And if you didn't have the parentheses, you probably might make the mistake of doing a -1 squared, and that would give you the whole wrong answer, right? So it's really 1 squared with a negative in front. So it's really just a -1, because 1 squared is 1, and you bring down that negative sign, you end up with a -1. And then 2 times 1, that's going to be a +2, and at the very end a -3. So our y value is really -2, correct? So our vertex y value is -2. And there's our answer. So what I'm going to do right here is write down my vertex and those answers on this little piece of paper, but you don't write it on a little piece of paper, keep it in your notebook. So the vertex is 1, -2. So I want to go 1, -2. That's my vertex. Okay, and we said that this was opening up or down? It's opening down because the a value is -1. Okay. Find the x and y-intercepts. Okay, so let me go back and let me erase this work right here and just keep the original, and let me find the x and the y-intercepts. So from Algebra 1, we should remember that to find the x-intercept, we need to set y equal to 0 and solve, okay? Or to find the y-intercept, you want to set x equal to 0 and solve. So if it's asking for the x and the y-intercept, let's do that. Let's start with the x-intercept on the left side. So I'm going to set y equal to 0. It's going to say 0 equals negative x squared plus 2x minus 3. Now I need to solve this thing. Now one option is to factor, split, and solve, or if that seems too confusing because the a value is -1, you could always fall back on the quadratic equation. So there's a quadratic equation, x equals -b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. And of course we're going to get our b value right here 2, our a value is -1, and our c value is -3. And we're going to plug it all in. The best way to do this is to plug in with parentheses first before anything else. So replace the variables, the a, b, and c values with parentheses. I know it's sloppy, I apologize. And let's zoom in and plug in our b value of 2. So the b value of 2, the b value is 2, the a value is -1, the c value is -3, and the a value is -1. Zoom out a little. So when we work this out, let's start with the inside. And on the inside, we have 2 squared, which is 4. And we have -4 times -1 times -3. So let me go -2 plus or minus 4. And -4 times -1 is positive. 4 times -3 is -12. So you have a -12 right there. And it is over -2. So what else could we do? Inside the radical, inside the square root, we have a 4 minus 12. So that's going to give you a -8. So you're going to have -2 plus or minus the square root of -8 over -2. And the square root of -8, first of all, the negative sign is going to become an I on the outside, okay? And 8 could be rewritten. Thank you. So as you can see to the left right here in blue, I put the I on the outside. That got rid of the negative. What just happened? Sorry. It got rid of the negative sign by putting the I on the outside. Now it's a +8. And the 8, you're going to break it down to 4 times 2. And you split the root. So you'll have 2 square root of 2. And of course, there's an I on the outside. So it's actually going to be 2I square root of 2. I know it's a lot of stuff. This is all review. Hopefully, you guys remember this stuff from last semester. So in reality, I have, let me do this. Let me move this up, move this, move this. In reality, I have -2 plus or minus 2I square root of 2 all over -2. And what I want to do is I want to take the denominator of -2 and I want to split them to the first one and to the second one. So I'll really have -2 over 2 plus or minus, actually -2 over -2 plus or minus 2I square root of 2 over -2. So right here, this becomes 1. So you have 1 plus or minus. Now, the 2 and the 2 cancel. So I'm going to write down the square root of 2. But the I, instead of in the front, I'm going to put it in the back. So I'll put the I in the back. Notice that it's on the outside of the root, not on the inside. And what about this negative sign down here? That would just change the sign. If you move it up, it would change the sign. But it's already both positive and negative. So you don't really have to worry about it. It's already there. So this right here is my final answer, which are my X-intercept values. So going back to the question itself, the question itself was, what are the X and Y-intercepts? That was from question 3. Find the X and Y-intercepts. So the X-intercept is really the answers. And these are the answers, but notice they're not real answers. So what could you say about the X-intercept? So where does it cross the X-axis? Has no real X-intercepts. It has no real X-intercepts. Okay, and I don't really want you to write on the little paper I gave you because you're going to be using those questions over again. But maybe on your notebook you could write number 3, has no real X-intercepts. Okay? Now what does that mean visually? The parabola will not cross the X-axis. How about the Y-intercept? Okay, well, let's go back to our work here. And you know what? I might as well jot down that answer that we have right there, 1 plus or minus the square root of 2i. And I want to write down that answer for number 10. It says, find the solutions. They may be real, they may be complex. And in this case, they're complex. So the answer number 10 is the answer that we have right there. 1 plus or minus the square root of 2 with an I. That's the answer to number 10. So if you're doing this on your paper, maybe you want to write down just the number 10 right next to this. Because not only is it an X-intercept, but it's also your solutions. Okay? Anyway, those are your X-intercepts. Whoops. Those are your X-intercepts. Now let me delete it all and go back to my original equation to find the Y-intercept. So if I go back over here and go to the Y-intercept where you set x equal to 0, you're going to have y equals negative 0 squared plus 2 times 0 minus 3. So that's just going to be y equals negative 3. So we found the Y-intercept being negative 3. Okay? So let me go back to my question number 3, and let me write down that the Y-intercept is positive or negative 3. So over here, it has no real X-intercepts for question 3, but the Y-intercept is at negative 3, we said, correct? Yes? Okay. So far, let's take the information that we have and let's go to a graph. Whoops. Let's go to a graph. And let's put the vertex down. The vertex is 1, negative 2. So if I go 1 on the x, negative 2 on the y, I'll be right there. Here's my vertex. And through any vertex exists the vertical line that's the axis of symmetry. So there's an axis of symmetry going right through that vertex. And that axis of symmetry is what? Anybody remember that? X equals what? X equals 1 is the axis of symmetry. Axis of symmetry. Okay, and that's actually question number 11 on your list. So we found the axis of symmetry. What else do we know? We know that it's opening down. And number 4, it says, is there any pattern that you can use from the vertex, and why? So is there a pattern that we could use from the vertex instead of using an XY table?
Yes.
Yes. What's the pattern?
1, 1.
2, 4, 3, 9, right? 1, 1, 2, 4, 3, 9 from the vertex. So if you know that it's opening down, and you know the vertex, you could actually go from the vertex 1 over 1 down. And then from the vertex again, you could go 2 over 1, 2, 3, 4 down. And of course, you could go 3 over 1, 2, 3, 9 down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm off the graph, right? So let me do this. Let me put it off the graph down here. But anyway, you could use that pattern. You could reflect it over the axis of symmetry, and you'll have your perfect parabola, accurate graph of the parabola. And as you could see, it's opening down, the vertex is down there, and that's exactly why when I tried to find the X-intercept values, when I try to find where it crosses this x-axis, of course I couldn't find them, not real answers, because it doesn't actually cross, right? So they're imaginary answers. So another thing that we could easily do is rewrite the equation in vertex form, like number 6, because you know the vertex, and vertex form is simply plugging in your vertexes h and k into your vertex form equation. Unfortunately, we ran out of time, so we're going to pick it up on the next video.